The Elder Scrolls franchise is 23 years old, and it was only a matter of time before the franchise branched out into the world of the MMORPG. And to celebrate their 20th anniversary in 2014, they did just that with the Elder Scrolls Online, allowing players to customize their gameplay experience while taking on the dreaded enemies of Tamriel. Hey there, I'm Jacob with the Leaderboard, and we're here to check out the online game and world that's only gotten better with age. So choose your faction and have your greatsword ready, because we're about to take a look at 107 facts about the Elder Scrolls Online. Let's get started. The Elder Scrolls Online released its latest expansion, Morrowind, on June 6, 2017 on all platforms. The game is set about 700 years before the original Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. After the tutorial for online Morrowind ends, the player is on the docks of the Seyda-Neen in Vvardenfell, which are the exact same docks as those from the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind from 2002. The new expansion also has a character in common with the 2002 game. When your character arrives at the docks, you're greeted by a dark elf assassin who helps you and introduces you to the culture of Vvardenfell. There are silt striders in Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind. Players of the 2002 RPG will remember the oddly charming bug creatures that towered over their loyal Dunmer riders as an iconic aspect of the game, and according to creative director Rich Lambert, the striders can be used for fast travel. The one thing that silt striders aren't able to do in the game? Walk. When the original Morrowind was new, players were unable to ride them or see them walking around due to animation limitations, but according to game director Matt Fyror, there still aren't any silt striders walking around in the online version. The map from the Morrowind expansion was spoiled not long before its release. In January of 2017, a Redditor data mining through the game found a map of Vvardenfell. Iconic towns, Dwemer ruins, and even Red Mountain were all visible in this development map. In Morrowind, there are quite a few secrets to be discovered, particularly the fact that each tower in Tel Voss has a secret room. Think you can find them? You'll be rewarded with treasure if you do. Originally, the month of the Morning Star was missing from Morrowind due to being labeled as 0 in the 0 to 11 calendar year. However, a patch was later released that fixed this issue, and Morningstar appeared thereafter. If you pay close enough attention, you'll notice odd letterings on Dwemer pipes throughout the game. Learn to read Dwemer's script and you'll realize it's actually the word Wormgod written over and over. But what does Wormgod mean? It's developer Gary Noonan's nickname on the Elder Scrolls official forums. What a cool Easter egg. In the Omelin ancestral tomb, you can find Indiana Jones's body. It appears that a rock fell onto his leg, keeping him there to the end. But how do we know it's him? Not too far away from the scene, you can find a scroll with his final sentiments, and it's signed Indy. There's even a direct reference to The Last Crusade in it. Following the main storyline of Morrowind will lead you to 3 places with sections that are named after a different Pokemon from the Kanto region. The Alunaby Caverns have Marowak's Spine, Weeping Bell Hall can be found in Arkenthand, and Kakuna Burial is in the Ursulaku Burial Chambers. Another reference the Ursulaku Burial Chambers makes is about Final Fantasy VI. One of the sections is named Kefka's Burial. For those who don't know, Kefka Palazzo is the final boss in the popular JRPG. The collector's edition for the Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind contains a lot of cool collector's items. Among these are a map of Morrowind, Naryu's journal, and a statue of a dwarven colossus. The new expansion contains a humorous callback to the 2002 RPG. In the original Morrowind, your character creation began when a man on the docks asked you for your name. But in the Elder Scrolls Online expansion, when a man starts asking you these questions, another NPC interrupts him to say that the player's not like the others, they're on a special mission. In Morrowind, if you travel east of Mazank, you'll find a hidden talking mud crab on a little island. He's the richest merchant in the game, so it could be worth your time finding him. While developing Morrowind, 3 sound files of kittens mewing were used for the Kaguti. They were eventually replaced with more ferocious sounds, but the original moan2.mp3, roar2.mp3, and scream2.mp3 can still be found in the code by data miners. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. The Elder Scrolls Online is the only specifically online multiplayer game released in the Elder Scrolls series. The core games in the series, Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, are single-player RPGs, and 1998's Redguard was a third-person action-adventure game. 1997's Battlespire was an open-world RPG with survival horror elements that allowed co-op multiplayer, but it wasn't needed to play the game. Previous Elder Scrolls games, from Arena in 1994 to the most recent Legends in 2017, have been made under the Bethesda name. However, Elder Scrolls Online is developed by ZeniMax Online and published by Bethesda Studios. Elder Scrolls Online was ZeniMax's first major game release. Elder Scrolls Online had been in development development for a very long time. The idea first came to ZeniMax Online Studios in 2007, 7 years before the game was released. By 2011, director Matt Pryor and the development team were getting some early negative feedback about their plans and began to change the game's direction. While Skyrim was a big help in establishing a bigger fanbase and a more solid formula for the Elder Scrolls, it also set a very high bar for any other RPGs, and ZeniMax knew that those same fans would definitely be critical if the game wasn't good enough, so they rethought their approach to the Elder Scrolls Online. The plot of the Elder Scrolls Online takes place way before the main console games. The player character's quest to save Tamriel from the demonic Molag Bal is about 1,000 years prior to the adventures of the Dragonborn in Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls Online is the only game set before the life and reign of Tiber Septim. Players of previous games, especially Oblivion, will recognize the last name Septim from the line of emperors that ruled Tamriel during most of the games and during the third era of Tamriel's history. Tiber Septim was the first of these emperors. In addition to the game's main conflict with the Daedric Prince Molag Bal, the Elder Scrolls Online also has a secondary conflict. Much like the Civil War engulfing Skyrim during the 5th Elder Scrolls game, there's also a civil war happening in Tamriel during the Elder Scrolls Online. 3 factions, the Aldmeri Dominion, the Daggerfall Covenant, and the Ebonheart Pact, are vying for control in this war, though according to the history books, there was no real winner until Tiber Septim emerged just before the Third Era. The Elder Scrolls Online is the first game in the Elder Scrolls series to feature the Daedric Prince Molag Bal as the primary antagonist. Previous games have used Daedric princes as villains, such as the God of Destruction, Mehrunes Dagon, and Oblivion, but the last time the player saw Molag Bal, he was part of a Daedric quest in Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls Online finally gives the Prince of Domination a day in the limelight. The logo of the Elder Scrolls Online, the 3-headed snake on the box art and other promotional materials, has a deep hidden meaning. Keen players will recognize the symbol as a 3-headed version of an Ouroboros, which is a snake eating itself by the tail in a circle. This is an ancient symbol of cyclicality and persistence and also represents the 3 factions in the game. Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim players fondly remember those games as being beautiful, but often peppered with glitches because they all used the same creation engine from 2002. But because the Elder Scrolls Online is an online game, it had to utilize a different engine, which has resulted in less glitches for most players. In addition to famous voice actors from the industry like Jennifer Hale and Kevin Michael Richardson, the game also boasts actors such as Bill Nighy, Kate Beckinsale, and John Cleese. You might recognize Nighy as Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, Beckinsale as Celine from Underworld, and Cleese from Monty Python. While Skyrim kept players up in the north of Tamriel and Oblivion kept the action in Cyrodiil, Elder Scrolls Online is the first game since 1994's Arena to allow players to explore all of Tamriel. The Elder Scrolls Online was originally released on April 4th of 2014. This initial release was only on Windows and OS X. Console releases came a year later. While it's definitely an online MMORPG, the game was also designed to work for players who prefer a more lone wolf experience. Bethesda and ZeniMax have no plans for a single-player offline mode, but the game is definitely still playable in a more solitary manner. The holidays in Elder Scrolls Online differ from those in Skyrim so they can coincide with real-world holidays. During the Witches Festival, Halloween, the New Life Festival, New Year's, the Jesters Festival, Spring, and the Anniversary event, approximately Easter, players can participate in themed events and get special rewards. Sadly, there are no dragons in the Elder Scrolls Online, in contrast to Skyrim, whose dragons were hyped by fans and are now iconic symbols of the game. However, the events of the Elder Scrolls Online take place almost 1,000 years before Skyrim, so dragons just haven't made their reappearance in Tamriel yet. However, dragon priests do appear throughout the Tamriel of Elder Scrolls Online. The creepy priests, known for their powerful magic and affinity for masks, outlasted the extermination of the dragons thanks to their dragon cults. And in the Elder Scrolls Online, the priests take the form of magic-wielding undead. Director Matt Pryor said that for the Elder Scrolls Online, the development team stuck as close as possible to the original height maps for the locations that appear most often in other games. They also updated the flora, fauna, and ruins of the areas so that they'd still be recognizable. Unsurprisingly, the Elder Scrolls Online was majorly hyped before its release. The game appeared on almost 20 most anticipated games lists for 2014, and it's been worth the wait since then. As you probably expected, the Elder Scrolls Online wasn't a cheap game to make. According to various sources, the initial version of the game cost $200 million to develop. The beta for the console release of the Elder Scrolls Online was released only on the PS4 back in 2015. However, ZeniMax quickly amended their statement and announced the game would also be released on the Xbox One as well. Players of the Elder Scrolls Online are separated by platforms. The game's servers are different for the PC, Xbox, and PS4 platforms, so if you're on different systems, your axe-wielding Nord Barbarian can't battle with your friend's skilled Redguard swordsman. One thing that sets the Elder Scrolls Online apart from lots of other MMOs is the fact that all players can heal. Any RPG player knows the importance of being or having a healer, and because those those skills are in the restoration staff skill tree in Elder Scrolls Online, all the player needs to do is equip said staff and unlock the first ability in that tree. Like World of Warcraft, the Elder Scrolls Online allows for players to band together in trials, which are more or less raids done in large groups. Back in 2016, Pryor claimed that Tuesday was the day that a lot of players scheduled those kinds of big runs. The city of Orsinium, the Orc homeland capital seen in the Orsinium DLC, has buildings branching upwards vertically and also horizontally. This was done on purpose to make the city more interesting, memorable, and realistic, as if centuries of habitation were stacked on top of each other. The Orsinium DLC is the first time players have been able to visit the Orc capital in over 20 years of real-world time. The previous appearance of that location was in the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, which was released back in 1996. The Orsinium and Daggerfall areas are about the same size. Orsinium feels larger because of its vertical design, and the developers tried to design the city based on defensibility and its nickname of the Iron City. Unlike other games in the Elder Scrolls franchise, the player character is part of a faction by default in the Elder Scrolls Online. They're either in the First Aldmeri Dominion, the Daggerfall Covenant, or the Ebonheart Pact. However, there are fan-favorite groups like the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild that aren't among the initial choices, though they do exist in the game's world. Like Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Online has a total of 10 races you can play as. They are the human races of Imperial, Nord, Breton, and Redguard, the elf races of Altmer, Bosmer, Dunmer, and Orsimer, aka Orcs, and the beast races of Khajiit and Argonian. In most Elder Scrolls games, there are 3 classes: Fighter, Mage, and Rogue, but Elder Scrolls Online contains 4 classes: Templar, Dragon Knight, Sorcerer, and Nightblade. The June 2017 Morrowind expansion also introduces the Warden class. The first DLC for the Elder Scrolls Online, called The Imperial City, was announced in June of 2015 and added a ton of new content, including a huge dungeon, their biggest at the time. The core game of the Elder Scrolls Online contains 61 million items. That's equivalent to the population of people that are in the United Kingdom's mainland. Out of the ridiculous amount of items in the game, 2/3 of them are weapons. Specifically, that's 40,656,000 different weapons for all of your axe, bow, and dagger needs. Elder Scrolls Online contains over 10,000 non-player characters, which is more people than in the city of Bozeman, Montana. Because of the sheer number of non-player characters, the game was included in the 2016 Guinness Book of World Records for most unique NPCs in a video game. Almost all of the Elder Scrolls games contain readable books. Elder Scrolls Online is no different. There are over 2,200 books in the base game with a total of about 480,000 words. That's a ton of reading. Speaking of books, though the game takes place in the Second Era, there are 2 books that players can come across: Last King of the Aelids and Ruminations on the Elder Scrolls, that are from the 3rd and 4th eras respectively. Avid Skyrim players might recognize the author of the latter as Septimus Cygnus, an unstable scholar that players meet during Skyrim's main quest. Elder Scrolls Online has an insanely huge game world, and not just because of its big maps. While PvP matches take place on sub-servers called campaigns, the overall game is hosted on a mega server. The mega server technology was developed for the Elder Scrolls Online in order to avoid confusion. Pryor said that one of the most frustrating things to endure during an MMO's launch is trying to find your friends only to realize that they're on another shard. This problem is avoided entirely by putting everyone in the same place. One of the things changed during development was making stealing and thievery more accessible to players. The new justice system took thousands of in-game items and flagged them as owned by certain NPCs. There was also a set number of fences in the world so that the economy of the Elder Scrolls Online wouldn't become destabilized, and just like in the console games, guards were tasked with enforcing the law. Vampires and werewolves exist in Elder Scrolls Online. Much like in Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls Online version of vampirism and lycanthropy add a skill line to player characters, and the diseases can even be passed on from one player to another. The Elder Scrolls Online introduced another all-new faction. They're called the Undaunted, which is a group of dungeon-crawling adventurers. The Elder Scrolls Online has a store where players can spend real-life money. However, to make sure the game wouldn't trap players into a pay-to-win scenario, the developers made the Crown store sell mostly cosmetic items like Gwar mounts and costumes. Gwars are one of the creatures you can mount and ride, in addition to horses and Senkei tigers. The updated and improved version of the game, renamed the Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited, added a feature that allows players to pickpocket and or kill non-essential PCs. Just like in Skyrim, this turns your character into a fugitive from the law until your bounty was paid off, you waited for your debuff, or were killed by the guards. The score for the Elder Scrolls Online was composed by Brad Derrick and Rick Schaefer, rather than Jeremy Soule, who worked on Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. Both composers had worked on MMOs in the past, and Schaefer had worked on the music for over 110 titles before the Elder Scrolls Online. While Jeremy Soule didn't compose the bulk of the game's music, he did provide some input. Specifically, he worked on the title theme and music for the cinematics. The Bard songs were performed by Maluka, Luca, a musician and composer from Mexico known for her covers of video game songs on YouTube. The team asked her to pick 10 songs or poems from the game that caught her eye and had her compose songs around them. Some of the music was improvised. Once the initial recordings were done, the team had a lute player and a flute player record improvisations on the existing songs. These versions are what's heard when you encounter street musicians or non-singing bards. The crafting system and skill sets in Elder Scrolls Online are significantly different to those in Skyrim. In Skyrim, all armor crafting was located in the blacksmithing skill tree, all potions were in alchemy, and all types of item and armor enchantment were in the enchanting tree. In Elder Scrolls Online, however, crafting is divided into 6 professions: provisioning for making food and other supplies, enchanting, blacksmithing, woodworking, clothing, and alchemy. In Elder Scrolls Online, any item can be deconstructed into its raw elements. These components can then be used to make any type of new items, similar to the crafting done in the settlements in Fallout 4. The NPCs throughout the game all have specific schedules. This isn't as common in MMOs, like World of Warcraft for example, as it is in more classic RPGs like the core Elder Scrolls games. As any astute thief in Skyrim can attest, NPCs with work and sleep schedules are much easier to mess with, and Matt Fyror definitely supports this trolling. In a way, Bosmer characters, aka Wood Elves, can make better melee warriors than Nords, who are some of the best barbarians around. This is because of a racial passive ability that grants them 3% more max stamina, which means that they can hit harder and longer with a greatsword or warhammer than a Nord. Found all over the world and in the dungeons of Tamriel, Sky Shards grant Elder Scrolls Online players' characters a permanent additional skill point for every 3 shards collected. For the Homestead DLC, in which players were able to purchase homes similar to those in Skyrim's Hearthfire, ZeniMax released about 1,300 additional items for home furnishing, including tables and chairs, light fixtures, beds, trophies from loot drops, and interactive items like crafting stations and mounts. In Skyrim, the Iron Horses were famous, or infamous, for being able to defy gravity and walk on water via glitches. Elder Scrolls Online's horses, however, were purposely designed to keep sprinting even if they run out of stamina, but stamina is still needed to prevent players from falling off their horses if struck. The cinematics for Elder Scrolls Online, specifically the Alliances, the Arrival, and the Siege, took 18 months to complete, with 100 artists working on it, on average about 20 at any given time. They started in early 2012. One commercial for the Elder Scrolls Online's Thieves Guild expansion took the form of a mock tourist ad. In it, Australian actress Sophie Monk was dressed in full Skyrim gear made by dedicated cosplayers and attempted to convince players to visit Tamriel and the new location of Hugh's Bane. Like the other Elder Scrolls games, Elder Scrolls Online can be played in first and third person. Most MMOs are played in third person, and according to ZeniMax, it was akin to duct taping a cliff racer to the back of your noggin in the early months of the game. Elder Scrolls Online has been given quite a few awards over the years. In 2013, it received 14 awards, including Best MMO by Digital Trends, Game Informer, and Geek Time, and given a Game Critics Award for Best RPG. Elder Scrolls Online was featured by the video series Arcade Arms in its first episode. In it, host Nika Harper crafts the fearsome Mace of Molag Bal. Elder Scrolls Online was pulled from shelves in Australia in 2015. EB Games removed all copies of the MMORPG from its store shelves due to the initial mixed and negative reviews the game received. You can make your character dizzy using the menu screen. Quickly spinning your character around in the character selection menu results in the avatar using the emote for dizziness or frustration. Perhaps the biggest fan favorite shout out in the Elder Scrolls Online is the inclusion of Mack the Liar. Mack is a Khajiit who has appeared in all Elder Scrolls games and is present in all Elder Scrolls Online zones. He's known for providing clever meta commentary about the games and eventually shooing you away with a familiar "Mack is tired now." Lots of Elder Scrolls Online NPCs spout Easter eggs that are references to other media. In the Dangerous Webs quest, the player is told to follow the spiders, which is a shout out to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. In Toothmaul Gully Dungeon, there's a character named Gollum who can be heard saying the word "precious," referring to the one and only Lord of the Rings. Fishy sticks make an appearance in the Elder Scrolls Online. This is a reference to a classic image on Bethesda's official forum displaying an advertisement for Captain Morgan's rum, but edited to be holding a fish stick instead of a bottle. These fishy stick images were used as rewards of honor and initiation for new members. In Elder Scrolls Online, fishy sticks are a craftable food item. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind contains a guide on fishy sticks, and in Skyrim they're mentioned by Mack the Liar. Another reference is the appearance of the book The Lusty Argonian Maid. The book can be found in Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, and in the Elder Scrolls Online it's a contraband item that's described as a well-worn book of stimulating images illustrating the popular tale of the Lusty Argonian Maid. It's some good reads. There's also a ship called the Rusty Argonian Blade, which is also a reference to the book The Lusty Argonian Maid. I imagine the captain is a big fan of the series. Naughty sailor, but I do appreciate his dedication to smut. Players who participated in the beta of Elder Scrolls Online were given a gift from ZeniMax, but it wasn't a weapon, it was a small monkey vanity pet awarded in April of 2014 to to all those who played the beta. The development team held an emote creation contest back in September of 2013. Players were instructed to make a video that showcased them explaining and performing the emote action, which was easier said than done because of the 88 emotes that already existed at the time. The winner of the contest was Trevor Baggett with the emote of Honor Dishonor, so players could commend or shame their friends. When the game first came out, 5 million players had signed up for the Elder Scrolls Online beta, and an estimated 1.2 million players bought both digital and or physical copies. Online subscriptions for the game dropped drastically within a year after its release. This was due to a number of factors, including lots of bugs and issues on the initial launch, phasing issues, easy-to-use exploits, and gameplay imbalances. These were resolved with later patches and further improvements from ZeniMax. Thanks to improvements made in the game, by June of 2016, the game had about 7 million subscribers. As of February of 2017, the game now has over 8.5 million subscribers and counting. Within only a few weeks of the game's release, black market activity accounted for about 85% of the customer service traffic that the team at ZeniMax was receiving. Lots of this black market profiteering came in form of gold spammers and people benefiting from various exploits present in the game's early issues. The beta for the game was in very high demand, and people were willing to pay some weird prices. Among these potential payments for a beta key were a firstborn child and also an entire left arm, both jokingly, we hope. For the week of April 5th of 2014, Elder Scrolls Online was the top-selling game in the United Kingdom for individual formats. Its console release was also the top-selling game the week it came out, which was in June of 2015. A free weekend for Elder Scrolls Online from December 10th to the 14th of 2015 was also accompanied by a crazy cash prize. How crazy? Specifically, Bethesda and ZeniMax Online gave away $1 million in the form of $5,000 a year for over 20 years to one lucky player as part of the #MillionReasonsToPlay campaign. After the release of the Thieves Guild DLC, a sizable amount of players expressed their desire to see a more stringent justice system implemented in the game. Not only would this make criminal activities more challenging, but the addition of guards or enforcers would add more PvP options because users playing as guards could be on the hunt for potential thieves. In its initial release, an Elder Scrolls Online player reached the max level of the game in 18 hours. 18! To put that into perspective, the main quest of Skyrim can take an average of 30 hours, which is almost twice as long. As of June 2015, Elder Scrolls Online players have logged a grand total of over 173 million hours of playtime, and that was 2 years ago. Any good modern game will spawn mods from dedicated fans that fix flaws, and Elder Scrolls Online is no exception. One mod from 2015 was called Advanced Filters, and it organizes the existing inventory categories into subcategories like making consumables into food, drink, and potions groups. There's also a mod for the game that makes sky shards easier to find. Seeing as sky shards boost players' skill points, finding them is a top priority. This mod helps streamline the process of finding them by dotting your maps with symbols denoting their locations and even adding some helpful notes. Some of the NPCs have funny names. Among them is Lort the Gravedigger. Lort is the Danish curse word for a certain bodily function and is also Swedish for dirt. Seeing as he's a gravedigger, we're not sure, but we think that might have been a tiny bit on purpose. Back in June of 2015, there was a glitch in the Xbox version of the game that allowed players to perform an emote while moving. While the player couldn't see themselves perform it, it was visible to others and allowed them to sprint around while playing the lute, or drums for example. Obviously the coolest way to play lute. By October of 2016, the Elder Scrolls Online was more popular on consoles than on computer devices. According to Matt Fyror, the players are divided evenly between PCs and Macs, Xbox One, and PS4, meaning that over 2/3 of users are on traditional consoles. The 1 Tamriel update for Elder Scrolls Online eliminated the level restrictions from the game, which then allowed players to travel through the game world at their leisure and at their own pace. Additionally, the alliance restrictions were also eliminated, letting users play with friends in different factions more freely. Once again, I'm Jacob, and thanks for watching 107 Facts about the Elder Scrolls Online. Have you been playing it? Which faction is your favorite? Did we miss anything? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button to become part of our notification squad, and if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to the Leaderboard, where we help you game smarter.